It all started so perfectly. I had a job I loved, a small circle of loyal friends who always had my back, and life seemed to be falling into place. I had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. I didn't even know what to expect when I met her. Jenna. I'll never forget the first time I saw her, her smile, the way she lit up the room with just a glance, like she was a ray of sunshine breaking through a storm. She seemed like everything I wanted. I didn't even realize it at the time, but the way she looked at me made me feel like I was the only person who mattered. I was instantly drawn to her. I thought maybe this was it, the start of something real. Maybe she was the one. I didn't question it. Everything felt so easy, so natural with her. Our conversations flowed effortlessly. I found myself spending more and more time with her, canceling plans with friends just to be with her. "You've got a great smile, you know that," she said one evening, her voice soft, like a secret. I blushed, embarrassed, but she just laughed and kissed my cheek. I was floating, basking in the warmth of her attention. I had always been cautious in relationships, but with her, everything felt different. Every word she said seemed like poetry, every touch felt like magic. She made me feel alive. At first, it was everything I wanted. She'd text me in the morning, check in during the day, and make plans for us to meet up at night. The world seemed brighter when she was around. I started thinking maybe I was lucky, no, I was lucky, to have found someone like her. But slowly, it changed. I didn't notice it at first, but now, looking back, I can see the pattern. Little things. She'd always ask for favors, asking me to pick something up, handle a situation for her. At first, I didn't mind. She had a busy job, and I was happy to help her. It felt good to be needed, to be the one she turned to. But it never stopped. It went from small requests to bigger ones. And soon, I was always doing something for her, picking up her dry cleaning, fixing things around her apartment, even doing errands for her parents when she couldn't be bothered. It seemed normal at the time, but now I can see how she was slowly wearing me down. She was so sweet about it, though. She'd smile, kiss me, thank me, and tell me how much she appreciated me. "You're always there when I need you," she'd say, and I'd feel so good about myself. I thought that was love. But looking back, it wasn't love. It was manipulation. I started to notice my friends pulling away. I missed hanging out with them, but I didn't want to disappoint her. She'd get upset if I spent too much time with anyone else. "I remember one time," she said, "you don't need anyone else, right? We have everything we need, just us two." I should have seen the red flags then. She didn't want me to spend time with anyone but her. But I didn't. Instead, I told myself it was just how relationships were supposed to be. I told myself she was just really into me. She made me feel so special, like I was the only person who mattered. But over time, I started to feel empty. Like I was being drained. I was always doing something for her, always trying to make her happy. I realized I hadn't done anything for myself in a long time. I hadn't seen my friends in weeks. My family had started calling less, and I couldn't even remember the last time I'd done something for myself. "You're amazing," Jenna would say. "I don't know what I'd do without you." And I'd smile and tell myself that this was what love was. Being there for someone, supporting them no matter what. But the more I gave, the less I got in return. I thought I was doing something right, but the truth was, I was giving so much of myself away that there was nothing left for me. One night, I realized how much she had taken from me. I was sitting alone in my apartment, staring at my phone, and I couldn't remember the last time I had done something for myself. Every thought in my head was about her, how to make her happy, how to make sure she never left me. I had nothing left but her. And she knew it. She had me exactly where she wanted me. I confronted her the next day. I remember sitting across from her at the cafe, my heart racing, my hands shaking as I asked, "Jenna, do you care about me? Or am I just someone you can use?" She looked at me, and for a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. But she smiled, the kind of smile that had always made me feel safe. "Of course, I care about you. You're my everything." But the words felt empty. They were always empty. It wasn't until later, after everything had fallen apart, that I realized how she had manipulated me. She'd made me feel like I couldn't live without her, and in doing so, she took everything from me, my time, my trust, my love. She'd used me until I was empty, and then she left. Looking back, I can see the signs, the little things that added up. But at the time, I was so blinded by how she made me feel. I was so desperate to keep her that I didn't even realize I was losing myself. And by the time I realized, it was too late. I was already a shell of who I used to be, and she had moved on, leaving me behind. Now, I know the truth, she never really cared. I was just a tool to her, something to use until I was drained. And I was left with nothing but the memory of what I thought was love. But that was the past. I had to let go of it, or it would destroy me. I had to rebuild, even if it meant starting from nothing. I wish I had noticed the cracks sooner. At first, everything seemed fine. Jenna was still the woman I'd fallen for, the one who made me feel important, like I was the center of her world. I thought everything was moving in the right direction, that our relationship was getting stronger. But little by little, the balance started to shift, and I didn't even see it coming. It started small, little requests here and there. "Can you grab this for me?" Or "I need your help with this, babe." I didn't mind. I wanted to help her, make her life easier. I told myself it was just what relationships were about, supporting each other. But soon, those little requests became demands. It was like every time I turned around, there was something else she needed me to do. At first, I was happy to be there for her. I thought it was what I should do. She had a lot on her plate, and if I could lighten her load, why not? So, I spent my evenings fixing things around her apartment, running errands, picking up groceries when she didn't feel like it. I was starting to feel like I was doing my part, like I was being the perfect boyfriend. She always smiled, kissed me on the cheek, and told me how much she appreciated it. I told myself I was doing good. I was needed. But then the requests started getting more frequent, bigger things, too. "Can you stay up with me tonight? I don't feel like being alone." Or, "I need you to call in sick for me today. I'm just too tired to deal with it." I'd go along with it, even when it meant I was pushing myself to the limit. My friends noticed I was missing out on everything. I'd cancel plans or show up late, always apologizing, saying, "Jenna needs me." I didn't see it then, but the more I gave, the more it felt like I was disappearing. At first, I thought it was just the rhythm of a long-term relationship. Sometimes you give more, sometimes less. But eventually, I started feeling empty. Like I was nothing but a tool for her. Every time I gave, it didn't feel like I was getting anything back. No appreciation, no recognition. The more I gave, the less she seemed to care. I couldn't remember the last time I'd done something for myself. I spent my weekends running around doing things for Jenna, and she always acted like it was just expected. When I was tired, she'd tell me how much she needed me, and I'd give in. When I was feeling drained, she'd smile and say, "You're amazing. I don't know what I'd do without you." And for a moment, I'd feel like I was doing the right thing, like maybe the sacrifices were worth it. But it didn't take long for me to realize it wasn't working. The more I gave, the less she seemed to notice. I'd spend hours fixing things around her place, and she wouldn't even acknowledge it. She'd ask for more, and when I did it, there was no gratitude, just another task to add to the list. I was doing everything for her, but she was never there for me. I tried to pull back once. It was subtle, just not responding to her texts immediately, not jumping up to help every time she asked. The next time I saw her, she smiled at me, and in that moment, I felt like everything was fine again. "You know, I've been thinking," she said, resting her hand on my arm, "you've been so great lately. You've been so supportive. I need you more than you know." And just like that, I was pulled back in. That was when I realized what she was doing. Every time I tried to take a step back, she reeled me in with a smile, a kiss, a promise of change. But the change never came. It was always the same. The more I gave, the more she took. And when I reached the breaking point, when I finally questioned it all, she would act like it was nothing. I felt guilty for thinking about stepping away. I felt like I was failing her, like maybe I was just being selfish. She'd make me feel that way. "What's wrong with you?" she'd ask. "Why are you pulling away when I need you the most?" And I'd feel like the bad guy, like I wasn't being the partner I should be. The guilt gnawed at me, and I kept telling myself that I was just being paranoid, that maybe I was overthinking things. But deep down, I knew something was off. I could feel it, the weight of everything I was losing, even though I couldn't put it into words. Jenna had this way of making everything about her. When we talked, she'd dominate the conversation, and I'd be left listening, nodding, always agreeing, never really voicing what I needed. She'd laugh it off, and I'd laugh with her, but inside, I was starting to feel more and more invisible. Like I was becoming an afterthought. I wanted to leave. I wanted to walk away, but I didn't know how. Jenna had made me so dependent on her that the thought of being without her terrified me. She'd made me feel like I couldn't live without her. Like no one else could ever care for me the way she did. But when I really thought about it, I realized that wasn't love. It was control. She needed me to need her, and I had given in. That was the hardest part, seeing it for what it was. She was using me, draining me dry, and I had allowed it to happen. I was stuck in this toxic cycle of trying to please her, trying to fix her, trying to make things better, but I was losing myself in the process. I couldn't keep doing this. But leaving was the hardest part of all. How do you leave someone who's made you believe you can't live without them? How do you untangle yourself from someone who's made you feel like you owe them everything? It felt impossible. I wasn't sure I was strong enough to let go. But one thing was clear, I had to stop. I had to stop giving so much of myself to someone who didn't care. I had to find a way to take back what was mine, my time, my energy, and my life. I never saw it coming. But when it hit me, it was like a freight train. I thought I knew Jenna. I thought I understood who she was, what we had. But that night, when I stumbled upon the truth, I realized I had been living in a lie. A perfect, carefully constructed lie that she had built and fed me piece by piece. And I had swallowed it all without question. Until I found out. It started like any other evening. I came over to her apartment after work, expecting the usual, her smiling at the door, pulling me inside, the warm embrace that always made me feel like I was home. But tonight, something felt different. There was an unease in the air, a tension that I couldn't quite place. I tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just me overthinking things. But then I noticed the phone on the counter, face down. It wasn't anything unusual, but I knew she never left her phone unattended. I told myself not to be paranoid. I had no reason to doubt her. But that nagging feeling wouldn't go away. The more I thought about it, the worse it got. She had been distant lately. Less affectionate. More withdrawn. I tried to push it out of my mind, but the feeling kept growing, gnawing at me. "Hey, I'm gonna grab a drink," I called as I headed for the kitchen. I tried to sound casual, but my voice betrayed me, and she looked up from the couch. Her eyes met mine for just a moment before she quickly looked away, too fast to be normal. "Sure, babe. Just leave your stuff by the door." I poured myself a drink, trying to calm down, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I turned back to the counter where her phone sat, taunting me. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't help myself. I reached for it, telling myself it was just curiosity. I wasn't expecting what I found. The screen unlocked without a second thought, and there it was, her messages. The ones she had hidden from me. At first, I didn't understand. I thought I was reading it wrong, but then the truth hit me. There it was, in plain text, her texting someone else. "I can't wait to see you tonight," it read, followed by more intimate messages that made my stomach turn. She was seeing someone else. I froze. My heart slammed against my chest. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through the rest of the messages. My mind couldn't process it, but there it was, clear as day. She was with someone else, behind my back. I had been there for her, emotionally, physically, while she had been seeing someone else, using me as a backup, a safety net. She had made me believe we were in love, that everything was real. But it was all a lie. I was nothing but a tool to her, a person she kept around when it was convenient. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was suffocating. How could I have been so blind? How could I have missed the signs? I had given her everything, trusted her with my heart, and she had just thrown me aside for someone else. I could feel the betrayal in my bones, deep, gnawing, and raw. I didn't even wait for her to come back into the room. I stood up, throwing her phone on the couch, the anger bubbling up like a volcano inside me. When she walked back in, she saw the look on my face. She didn't even seem surprised. There was no guilt, no shame, just a cold indifference in her eyes. "Why?" My voice cracked as I asked the question. "Why would you do this to me?" She didn't hesitate. Her response was simple, too simple. "I'm sorry, okay? We just weren't right for each other. I needed something different." I felt like the floor had been ripped from under me. I wanted to scream, to yell at her, but I couldn't. I was paralyzed, staring at her, waiting for something, anything, to make sense of it. "You're sorry?" I repeated, my voice rising, the hurt finally breaking through. "You've been seeing someone else behind my back, and you're sorry?" She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Look, I never meant for things to get so complicated. But I've been thinking about this for a while. I didn't want to hurt you, but it's over." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. This wasn't the person I thought she was. She wasn't the woman who promised she cared. She wasn't the one who told me I was her world. No. She had used me. Used me until she had nothing left to take, and now she was throwing me away like I was nothing. "I've been there for you, Jenna," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "I've done everything for you, and this is how you repay me?" "I didn't want it to end like this," she said, her voice soft, almost pitying. "But I think you should just move on. You'll find someone better, someone who appreciates you." I just don't feel the same anymore." I wanted to yell, to tell her everything she had done wrong, but the words got caught in my throat. The betrayal was too deep. It stung more than I ever thought possible. I had trusted her with my heart, with my life, and she had destroyed it. "I guess that's it, then," I whispered. I couldn't even look at her anymore. "You've made your choice." "Yeah," she said, looking almost relieved. "I think we're done here." I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know how to walk away from the person I had thought I loved, the person who had taken everything from me and tossed me aside. But I knew this was the moment. I couldn't let her destroy me any longer. I turned around and walked out, leaving everything behind. The hardest part wasn't walking away. It was realizing I had given so much to someone who had never cared about me in the way I cared about them. It was realizing that I had been nothing more than a stepping stone in her life, and now I was just a chapter she closed without a second thought. The silence was deafening. I never realized how loud silence could be until I walked out of her apartment that night. Her words echoed in my head, "I think we're done here." And that was it. That was all it took to destroy everything I thought I knew. I had been so certain that we were meant to be, that we were building something real, but now, all that was left was an empty space. Empty apartment. Empty heart. I didn't know what to do with myself. She had been my everything for so long, and now that she was gone, I felt like a shell. I threw myself into work, hoping that if I kept busy enough, I wouldn't have to feel the crushing weight of loneliness. But the work never stopped. It piled up, and the more I buried myself in it, the further I sank. I barely slept. I barely ate. It was as if I was just going through the motions. Nothing seemed to matter anymore. The mornings felt endless. I'd wake up, stare at the ceiling, and wonder how I had gotten here. The man I had been, the one full of energy, optimism, and hope, was nowhere to be found. I didn't even recognize the person I saw in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes hollow. I had become a ghost of the man I used to be, and I had no idea how to find him again. I kept replaying everything in my head, the memories of our time together. The way she'd smile at me, the little things she'd say. "You're my everything, you know that?" I had believed her. I had trusted her. But now, I saw it all for what it was, just empty words. She had never meant them. I had given her everything, and she had taken it all without a second thought. The loneliness was suffocating. I reached out to my friends, the ones I had pushed away during my time with her. But it was too late. They had moved on, built their own lives while I had been consumed by her. They weren't angry, just distant. I could tell they had tried to reach out before, but I had been so caught up in Jenna that I didn't even notice. I had lost them, just like I had lost myself. And there was nothing left. Every day felt like a struggle. The apartment felt colder, emptier, and I couldn't escape the thought that I was completely alone. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. Why hadn't I seen it? Why hadn't I realized that I was just a convenience to her? Why had I let her take so much from me? Why did I let her make me feel like I couldn't live without her? I couldn't even bring myself to call her anymore. Every time I thought about it, I was met with the image of her, sitting there, so casually, telling me we were done. I had been so vulnerable with her, and she had turned it all into a game. She had used me until she was done, and then she threw me away without a second thought. But there was a part of me, somewhere deep down, that refused to give up. I wasn't ready to let her take everything from me, not my self-worth, not my life. I didn't know where to start, but I knew I had to keep going. I had to rebuild, even if it felt impossible. I had to reclaim what I had lost, even if I wasn't sure who I was anymore. So, I forced myself to take small steps. I reached out to my coworkers again, trying to get back into the rhythm of things. I went for short walks when I could. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I knew I couldn't stay stuck in this hole forever. I had to find a way out. Slowly, I started to remember the things I used to love, things that had nothing to do with her. I liked reading. I liked playing guitar, though I hadn't picked it up in months. I liked running. Little by little, I forced myself to rediscover those things. It wasn't easy, but it was something. I couldn't fix everything at once. I knew that. The damage had been done, and the hurt was still there, raw and fresh. But I realized something important: it wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. My journey wasn't about getting her back or waiting for her to realize what she lost. It was about healing, about figuring out who I was without her. And that was going to be the hardest thing I had ever done. It felt like I was starting over from scratch. But it was a start. I wasn't giving up, even though everything in me screamed that I should. I couldn't. I had to get back to who I was before her, before everything had fallen apart. The first time I laughed after all of this, really laughed, I felt something stir inside me. It was like a spark. A flicker of hope. I realized then that I wasn't going to let her break me. No matter how bad it hurt, no matter how empty I felt, I wasn't going to stay there. I was going to rebuild, even if it meant doing it alone. Jenna wasn't the center of my life anymore. I was. And that was something I needed to remind myself every day. I started small. I knew it had to be a slow process, a step-by-step journey towards something I could barely even remember, myself. For the first time in months, I woke up without the crushing weight of Jenna's presence in my mind. I woke up and realized that I wasn't tied to her anymore. It felt like I was waking from a long, heavy sleep. But instead of feeling free, I felt scared. Scared of what I had become, and even more scared of what I had lost. I decided to take control. The first thing I did was start exercising again. It wasn't much, just a jog around the block. But I needed to feel something, anything, other than the weight of the past. My body had been neglected for so long. When I ran that first mile, my legs were sore, and my breath came in sharp gasps, but there was a small part of me that felt alive again. I had forgotten what it felt like to push myself, to have a purpose that was just mine. When I got home, I took a shower and looked at myself in the mirror. I didn't recognize the person staring back at me, eyes dull, skin pale. The reflection wasn't just someone who had spent too long wallowing in self-pity, it was someone who had been hiding from the truth. I wasn't going to let that person keep controlling my life. I knew I had to rebuild. I had to start caring about myself again. So, I set small goals. I picked up the guitar again. It had been months, maybe even longer, since I last strummed a note. The sound was rusty at first, but the more I practiced, the more natural it felt. I spent time with old hobbies I had let slip, like reading books that had always been my escape. Little by little, I filled my life with things I loved, things that had nothing to do with her. I even started calling my friends again. It was awkward at first, too many months had passed, and I wasn't sure if they would want to talk to me. But surprisingly, they did. Some of them were hesitant, unsure of what I'd been through, but they were there. Slowly, I began rebuilding the friendships I had neglected. I started meeting them for lunch, hanging out, catching up on all the time I had lost. But the temptation to reach out to Jenna never completely faded. There were days when I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, about to text her. "How are you? I miss you." The words would be on the tip of my tongue, but then I'd remember everything. I'd remember how she had used me. I'd remember the hollow conversations, the promises she never kept, the time she had wasted. Every time I caught myself, I pulled back. She wasn't my priority anymore, and I needed to remind myself of that. Still, the temptation lingered, and every now and then, when I was alone with my thoughts, I'd wonder if she missed me. If she regretted everything. I'd feel that small pull, the longing to return to the life we had. But then I'd remind myself of what I had gained by walking away. I was no longer the version of myself I had been when I was with her. I wasn't her support system, her emotional crutch. I was me. And that realization helped me stay strong. But the self-doubt was always there, just beneath the surface. Sometimes, when I looked at the person I was becoming, I didn't recognize myself. I would ask myself if I was truly worthy of moving on. Did I deserve happiness after everything I had allowed to happen? I had let myself be used. I had let her drain me dry, and now I was supposed to believe I could rebuild myself into something better? It felt impossible. But I pushed through. I had to. Because there was one thing I knew for sure, I needed to find my own worth, independent of anyone else. For so long, I had defined myself by my relationship with Jenna, by how much she needed me. But I didn't need her anymore. The real test was learning to stand on my own 2 feet, without the crutch of her love, or whatever it was she had given me. I couldn't keep looking for validation from her. I had to build my life on my own terms. I had to trust that I was enough, even when I felt like I wasn't. And it was hard. There were days when I felt like giving up, when the weight of everything threatened to crush me again. But then I'd think about all the small victories I had, going for that run, picking up my guitar again, reconnecting with my friends. Each one of those moments was a step forward. I wasn't healed yet. I knew it wasn't going to happen overnight. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was getting somewhere. I wasn't waiting for Jenna's approval anymore. I wasn't waiting for her to come back and make me feel whole. I was doing it for me. And that was a start. I knew I was far from finished, but I could feel something stirring inside me, a strength I hadn't known was there before. And no matter how many times I stumbled, no matter how many times I felt like I was failing, I kept moving forward. Because that was the only thing I could do. It didn't take long for Jenna to make her way back into my life. At first, it was subtle, just a text, a message asking how I was doing. Simple, casual things that made me feel like maybe she missed me. I wanted to ignore them, I really did, but the truth is, part of me still wanted to hear from her. Part of me still missed her, even after everything that had happened. I'd been doing better, I thought. I'd been staying busy, trying to put myself back together, trying to move forward. But then, out of nowhere, she came back like a wave crashing against the walls I'd been building. The texts were innocent at first, "Hey, how have you been?" or "I've been thinking about you. I hope you're doing okay." I felt a tight knot in my chest each time my phone buzzed with her name. It didn't matter that I had vowed to leave her behind. It didn't matter that I had made the decision to rebuild my life without her in it. The truth was, part of me was still attached to her. part of me still wanted to believe the things she had said to me before. I wanted to believe she missed me, wanted me back. But as I stared at the messages, I realized something important. I had worked too hard to rebuild myself. I had spent so many sleepless nights, so many lonely moments, figuring out who I was without her. And I couldn't just throw that all away. I couldn't go back to the way things had been. I wasn't the same person anymore. I had changed. I had learned to live without her, and it wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The temptation was there, though. It always is, isn't it? The pull of something familiar, something that once made you feel like you belonged. She knew exactly how to reach me, how to make me doubt myself, how to make me question whether I was really better off without her. I could already hear her voice in my head, "I'm sorry. I made a mistake." I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. She'd say the same things she had said when she wanted me back before. She always had a way of making me feel like I was the one who was wrong, like I was the one who was causing the distance between us. I knew better, though. I knew the pattern now. She'd reel me in with her sweet words, her apologies, and then I'd find myself back in that toxic cycle of giving and giving while she took everything. It was easy to fall back into that trap. It felt familiar, comforting. But it wasn't love, it was control. And I wasn't going to let her do that to me again. I looked at the phone in my hand, weighing my options. I could answer her. I could tell her that I missed her, that I was willing to try again. But that would mean I was going back to the old me, the one who let her use him. The one who was so caught up in her that he lost sight of everything else. I wasn't that person anymore. I couldn't be. It was hard. God, it was so hard to resist the pull. I could feel my heart aching with every word she sent me. I missed her laugh. I missed the way she'd smile at me, like I was the only person in the world. But that was all part of the illusion she had created. The person I had fallen in love with wasn't real. She had been someone I had wanted her to be, not who she actually was. I started typing a response, my fingers hovering over the keys. "I've been doing better, thanks for asking. I've got a lot going on right now, and I'm really focused on moving forward." It wasn't harsh, but it was honest. I didn't owe her anything anymore, and I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking she could just waltz back into my life whenever she felt like it. As I hit send, I felt a strange sense of relief. I had made the right choice, even if it hurt. But even then, part of me wished I could have just said yes, just once. I wanted to hear her say that she missed me, that she was sorry. But I had to stay strong. I had come too far to go back. The road ahead was uncertain, but I couldn't turn around now. The messages kept coming. They grew more personal, more emotional. "I'm really sorry for everything. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted you to be happy." I could feel the guilt creeping in, the self-doubt. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe she really had changed. But deep down, I knew it was all part of the same act. I had to stay strong. I couldn't let her back into my life, not like this. It wasn't healthy for either of us. And even though every part of me wanted to reach out, to let her back in, I knew that would only make things worse in the long run. She had used me once, and I wasn't about to let it happen again. I stared at my phone for a moment longer, my thumb hovering over the reply button. But then I put it down. I didn't need her. I had myself, and that was enough. I had to keep moving forward. I had to keep rebuilding, even if the temptation to return was still there. It would always be there, but I was stronger now. I was wiser. And this time, I wasn't going to fall for it. It wasn't a sudden realization, but a quiet one that built over time. I had been so consumed by the idea of revenge for so long. I thought if I could just make Jenna feel the pain she'd caused me, it would somehow make everything right. I wanted her to know what it felt like to be abandoned, to feel discarded, just like I had. I convinced myself that if I could just have that moment of vindication, if I could watch her suffer the way she made me suffer, I'd feel better. But as the days passed, I realized something. I didn't need revenge. What I needed was to move on. Jenna had taken so much from me, but the one thing I still had, maybe the only thing I had left, was my ability to choose what came next. I could keep holding on to the past, keep feeding into the anger and the bitterness that came with it, or I could let it go and take back control. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I decided to choose peace. I had been using the pain she caused as fuel to rebuild my life, but the truth was, I didn't need her to do that anymore. I had transformed, step by step, from the person who was afraid to stand alone to the person who could hold their own. I was no longer the man who let someone else define my worth. I was learning to respect myself, and that respect was worth more than any relationship. It was hard, though. Harder than I expected. Because even after everything, there were still moments when I missed her. When the loneliness crept in, when I remembered the good times, the times when I believed in the illusion she had created for me. I missed the way she made me feel important, the way she made me believe I was special. But I wasn't special to her. I had been a convenience. And that truth, though painful, was freeing. I had spent so long trying to get her back, trying to win her love. But now, I realized I didn't need that validation anymore. I didn't need her approval or her affection to feel complete. For the first time, I felt whole on my own. It was empowering in a way I couldn't explain, like I had finally stepped into my own skin, like I had shed the weight of her manipulation. I started making decisions for myself. I took the job offer I had been hesitating on. I took more time for myself, time to figure out what I wanted, not what someone else needed from me. I started making plans with my friends again, without the guilt of neglecting them for Jenna. Slowly, I reconnected with the world around me, realizing that the world didn't revolve around her. The world had always been there, waiting for me to open my eyes. There were still moments when her name would pop up on my phone, or I'd hear a song that reminded me of her. And for a split second, I'd feel that familiar pull, that temptation to reach out. But each time, I fought it. I reminded myself that I didn't need her. I wasn't defined by my past with her. And slowly, the urge faded. The more time I spent focusing on myself, the less I cared about what she was doing, or whether she thought of me. It wasn't easy to let go. And maybe, deep down, part of me still wanted the closure, the I'm sorry, the acknowledgement that what she had done was wrong. But I didn't need it. I didn't need her to validate my pain or my healing. I was healing on my own. I was creating my own closure, by choosing to move forward. I started focusing on the things I loved, writing, photography, taking long walks. I remembered how I used to dream about traveling, about exploring new places. For the first time in months, I started thinking about the future, and what I wanted out of life. I wasn't the man who had been devastated by her betrayal anymore. That man was gone. I was stronger now, more independent, and more in tune with who I was. I had stopped looking back at the past. I had stopped hoping for a future that included someone who had never really been there for me. I had stopped waiting for her to come back into my life. I was moving forward, no longer trapped in the cycle of pain and heartbreak. The temptation to reach out to her had been strong, but I realized something crucial: I didn't need her. I didn't need her love to feel valuable. I didn't need her to define who I was. And in letting go of that, I had finally taken control of my life. Jenna still lingered in the back of my mind, but her hold on me was slipping. With every step I took away from the past, she faded into the distance. She had no power over me anymore. I had my life back, and this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take it away from me. I had learned that strength didn't come from revenge or holding on to anger. Strength came from moving forward, from finding peace within myself, and from realizing that I was enough, just as I was. I was not the broken man she had left behind. I was something more, something better. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of who I was becoming. It happened again. She reached out, just like I knew she would. The message came through in the late afternoon, just as I was finishing work. Her name popped up on my phone, and for a moment, I couldn't move. I'd been expecting it, but that didn't make it any easier. Jenna had a way of reappearing at exactly the right moment. When I thought I was finally free of her, she'd pop back into my life like a shadow, always lingering in the corners of my mind. I stared at the text. "Hey, can we talk? I've been thinking about everything, and I think we need to have a real conversation. I'm sorry for everything." I knew what that meant. She was sorry, again. Sorry for using me, sorry for not being there, sorry for the way things ended. I had heard those words so many times before, but they never meant anything. And yet, here I was again, my heart racing, my thoughts spinning. There was a part of me that wanted to pick up the phone, that wanted to hear her voice again, to feel that familiar pull. But I didn't. Not this time. I had worked too hard to get to this point. I had fought for my peace, and I wasn't about to let her take that from me again. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes for a moment, and then, with shaky fingers, I typed out a response. I couldn't let her keep holding the strings to my life. I had to break free, once and for all. I'm done, Jenna. I've given everything I could to this, and it wasn't enough for you. It's time for both of us to move on. You don't get to come back into my life whenever it's convenient for you. I won't be your backup, your second choice, anymore. I have to let you go. It felt strange, almost surreal, to type those words. For so long, I had wanted to hear her say something like that to me. I wanted closure. I wanted to hear her finally admit she had hurt me. But the truth was, I didn't need her apology anymore. I didn't need her to make things right. I had spent so long holding on to a version of her that didn't even exist. I had been holding on to a ghost. When I hit send, there was a sense of finality in the air. The decision had been made. The door I had been holding open for her was slammed shut. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't felt in ages, peace. The phone buzzed a few moments later, and I couldn't bring myself to check it. I already knew what she would say. She would apologize. She would tell me I was overreacting, that things weren't as bad as I thought. She would pull at my heartstrings, trying to get me to fall back into the same toxic cycle. But I wasn't that man anymore. I wasn't sure if Jenna even understood what I had gone through, or how much I had given her. Maybe she did, but at this point, it didn't matter. She had taken enough. She had taken my trust, my time, my energy, and most of all, my peace. But I was taking it all back. I was free. Truly free. The silence in the room felt different now, more comfortable, like a weight had been lifted from my chest. I didn't need to check her messages. I didn't need to explain myself. I didn't need her to tell me she cared. I had spent so many years trying to make her love me, trying to prove I was worthy of her attention, trying to make things work when they never had been meant to. But now, I understood. I wasn't the one who had failed. She had. I sat there for a while, my phone in my hand, not knowing what to do next. It felt like the end of a chapter, no, the end of a whole book. Jenna's chapter was over, and I was done rereading it. I didn't need her anymore. Not in the way I thought I did. For the first time, I was looking at the future, not with regret or longing for what could have been, but with hope for what was to come. I wasn't alone anymore, not in the way I had been when I thought I needed her. I had myself. And that was enough. I walked outside, the evening sun setting behind me, casting long shadows across the ground. The cool breeze felt refreshing, and I took a deep breath, letting the air fill my lungs. I felt alive. I felt like I had just woken up from a long, painful sleep. I wasn't sure where the road ahead would lead, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to find out. There was so much to do, so much to experience, and so much to learn. And I wasn't going to let anything, anyone, hold me back anymore. As I stood there, taking in the moment, I realized something important. I wasn't the same person I had been when I met Jenna. I had changed. And that change wasn't just a result of what she had put me through. It was something I had done for myself. I had chosen to heal, to rebuild, to move forward. And no one, not Jenna, not anyone, could take that away from me. So, I let her go. For good. And for the first time, I felt like I was walking away from something that had never truly been mine to begin with.